Willow Mountain, I'm trying to say. And then last few years, volunteer again in St. Mary, and then Austin needed
Maybe we could. You want to restart that?
Yeah. Could you just? I'm sorry. Could you just say your name again?
Wouldn't that copy?
This is going to be a problem, but it's part of the job.
Oh, once we get your name, though, the rest can just be.
Okay,
scratchy.
My name is Patrick McCarron. And actually, I'm here on a volunteer basis. The lookout is normally here, has been here the last 5 years. His name Austin Hagwood, and he's off for the week, so you have to put up with me.
So how did you get involved with Fire Lookouts?
Well, I've always been interested in the wilderness. It's part of why I'm living in Montana. Is I can get out here as much as possible, and I got to know the wilderness ranger quite well in Stevensville at the time. The Selway Bitterroot Foundation. I'm kind of trying to edit this down to 25,000 words or less, but the Selway Bitterroot Foundation took over staffing the St. Mary Lookout, which is I can see it from where we live. I've been there a lot, so I volunteered, and that was 10 years ago. You could submit your application electronically or submit a written application. I'm in the dark ages. I wrote out my application. You know what happens to that? So I didn't hear anything, but I was pestering Bill Goslin, who was the wilderness ranger. Finally, just, look, give it up. If you haven't heard by now, you're not going to go. So that summer, I think it was in August, Thursday, I got a phone call. It was Bill. Okay, you still interested in going to St. Mary? Well, yeah. If you can get yourself trained, you can start Monday. Okay. So, long story a lot longer, we went to Willow Mountain, spent a day with a lookout there, and went up to St. Mary the following Monday, and was up there for a month, and that's how this whole chapter started.
What was it like your first time on the lookout?
Hoo-wee, my first day up there, there's high winds, 65 to 75 miles an hour. I thought the whole shanty was just going to go to pieces. The next morning was 30 degrees. And that was a cold summer. I built a fire every day, every morning when I was up there. But it was a good learning experience. I knew most of the basics already. I'm used to living out. I can chop kindling. I can build a fire. I can take care of myself. So had the basics down. I was just learning alidade and radio and all that, and the modern technology. Mm-hmm. I did not have a cell phone to that point. I had to learn how to use the cell phone.
What year was that?
That was 10 or 11 years ago. Let's say 2011.
Has your relationship to the landscape changed since you?
Boy, tough question. In different levels it has. I'm a lot more aware of the names of things. You have to know the names of things if you're going to direct somebody to fight a fire. So, 360 degrees, and I'm just in the learning stage here, which is not helping very much to smoke. From St. Mary, I can name every peak, every draw, every water drainage, St. Mary is right between Big Creek Canyon and Kootenai Canyon. Big Creek was kind of my briar patch. I've been going up Big Creek for at least 30 years. And I got to know the ground, the ground level of that pretty well. But the upper level, I had to learn from up here. So.
So one of the things that we're interested in this project that we're doing is kind of the increasing obsolescence of the fire.
Oh, you better not get me started.
So if you could just talk a little bit about it.
Yeah, well, obviously, as far as technological advancement goes, I'm at the sticks and rocks stage. But, these have a huge historical significance, and I'm talking some of the stuff I tell people at St. Mary. This is probably, the first lookout here was probably in the 30s. It was what they call a ragtop. There was no lookout. There was a post here, maybe a tree, and the guy lived in the tent, and then from there it escalated. In the 30s, there were about 50 lookouts in Ravalli County in the Bitterroot National Forest. It gave a lot of people jobs. And yeah, it gets to be redundant, but there are things to be said about a human being here. You know, yeah, you can set up the machinery and it can monitor the weather and the winds and everything else, but just walking around the catwalk every 15 minutes or so, you see things that, you know, when you're here long enough, there's a difference. You can tell. Also, in these steep canyons, especially here, it's just canyon country. If a fire crew is working on a fire down here and they have to stay overnight on it, they can't radio out. They can radio here, but they can't reach dispatch. So the lookouts are all relaying messages. That can get really critical. That can be, you know, a life or death situation. And there are a lot of just little, you know, things. I know we're in the modern age. The whole management of the Forest Service is changing to, you know, new people who don't really understand the significance of having to pack all your supplies in a mule train. This is a little different here. You can drive here, but there are quite a few lookouts that are still packed in. So, and also, you know, financially, you know, what does it cost to pay a lookout for a season? Probably what it costs an hour for the helicopter. You know, what it costs in a day for the aerial reconnaissance. And there are aerial reconnaissance when it's clear enough to see in fire season. And they go along between the lookouts and radio each lookout. And we radio back what to look at, what to look for, what we saw. So, end of sermon, is that enough?
Oh, that's great.
Oh, hold on a sec. Let me just.
Oh yeah. Over the course of your time as a fire lookout, can you maybe recall or share some of your more memorable experiences, lightning storms, animal encounters?
Oh boy, where to begin? Most of my initial experience was at St. Mary, and you're more of a tour guide there than a lookout. The actual lookout, your job here is looking. And, you know, it's, you know, when the lightning comes in, you're watching. Sometimes you'll see a strike, you can see the strike go down the tree and the fire come right up underneath it. You call it in. An hour later, there's nothing there. It went out. That's what we want. But you call it in, nevertheless. The middle of the night, sometimes it gets flashing and it bounces back and forth in here. It takes a while to figure out where the lightning is. You're right under it. Boom, boom. It's like the, you know, flash, boom. You're right there. You know, it's like the wrath of God. Your ears bleed. So, anyway, memorable stories. Let's see, it's been pretty quiet here this year. There's been a few fires. Most of the fires have been elsewhere. And this is a very high, extreme fire danger year. We're all on edge. It could go at any time. We've got a huge fuel load and it can go. I'm wandering along here. The question was memorable stories about fires. Hooey.
If you could just talk a little bit about your experience at St. Mary's and kind of the tour guide aspect.
Okay.
I think that's kind of interesting.
Well, St. Mary gets a lot of visitors and a lot of people. That's their first walk into the wilderness. It is just across the wilderness boundary. And I want to encourage people. There's a phenomenal blessing here. You could spend the rest of your days just noodling around the Selway Bitterroot. So, you know, I try to tell them, the flora, the fauna and the flora, you know, what to look for, the flowers they're trampling over, encourage them to be kind of cautious up there. The one thing that sticks in my mind was on or near the 15th of August, there's a big Catholic presence. The 15th of August is the Feast of the Assumption of St. Mary and St. Mary's Peak, which was named by the St. Mary Parish. So anyway, Saturday there's a group comes up from Idaho, and I'm blanking on where they come from. I got to know them pretty well, and then Sunday the local parish from St. Mary walks up. and they have a whole ceremony. They do a mass right on top. But the first time I was up there, and nobody included me in that there was going to be a mass of people. So all of a sudden it's inundated. I've got people crowded into the lookout. I've got a woman around here changing a diaper. so I was getting a little stressed there. And then I looked out. I made my walk around the catwalk, and there's a little girl out here picking flowers. Well, okay, please, this is a wilderness area. This is at 9,000 feet, it's tough. Everything growing here is really hardy and just hanging on. Please don't pick the flowers. Okay, so then I looked up and there's a group of young lads. Nothing I would have done at that age, but they're on the edge of my cliff just picking rocks off as fast as they can pick them. So I went over there and I unloaded on them. So I'm coming back and there's this old man walking on, who's facing away, walking on picking flowers. So I had it. I walked up and I just unloaded on him and he turned around. He was wearing the collar. It was the priest. Hello, Father. But I did ask him to quit picking flowers, so it was Father Kasich. Got to know him pretty well, and we look forward to seeing each other after that each year. But it's an intro to a lot of people, and I want to make it a positive one. And you can see Missoula from St. Mary. You can see from about the courthouse to the university along Broadway. You can see up the Rattlesnake up there. You can see the lower peaks on the Mission Range. It's at 9,000 feet, which is part of the problem. This is a little over 8,000 here. It's often in the clouds. The lookout at St. Mary was effectively abandoned for a lot of years and pretty well trashed. We're just kind of putting it back together. I'm really glad the foundation has taken an interest. There's a new roof on it. There's gradually, we're restoring it. That has a huge historical significance, as well as cultural and social, and it still reports fires now and again. So anyway, there's it's unfortunate in a way that this has become such a historical icon, and a lot of people want to come up here, and you all have probably read Jack Kerouac and have probably read the Dharma Bums. Somewhere in the back of your mind, yeah, I could do this. So, where I'm off meandering around again. The visitors in St. Mary, a lot of people are just not prepared for the hike. I had one couple come in and you could just almost hear their lungs rattling against their heart. They said, they just got off the plane in Missoula that morning from Boston. They went to the nearest outdoor store and said, where's a good hike? And the guy told them St. Mary's 9,000 feet from sea level in about, less than 24 hours.
So you're kind of suggesting that in addition to kind of the value of having human eyes on the landscape, that the fire lookout in this day and age has value in the way that it kind of gives people a way into the wilderness, or a way toward kind of cultivating a different relationship to the natural world.
Certainly, it makes all the difference to the world. I mean, you can look all this stuff up. I know you can do it. I've taken a few basic computer courses. I'm now the terror of the North Valley Public Library, and I can get in on these sites and see what's going on. But it's different talking to a human being, just like, did you want to come out here and punch something in and get the mechanical readout? In my opinion, anyway. So obviously, I'm kind of backward and old-fashioned. I would just as soon get around by horse or bicycle and get on the train if I had to go over 20 miles. I'm probably the only child who grew up in Michigan and hates cars. So, but anyway, this is an ideal fit. You'll have solitude time, but you're not really alone up here. You got the radio all the time. You report in every day, and you're here to report, to communicate with something. You are communicating. So that's big. And now on St. Mary, it's on the hike up. There's our wood pile. Normally, we have the packer, come up a couple times a year and load up with firewood. But some brilliant person had thought, put a sign down there that said, "Be nice to your lookout. Bring up one piece of firewood." It's amazing how much firewood comes up. I mean, the psychological backside of that is it gets people invested in the lookout, gives them a reason to talk to you. And I've had whole families come up. Dad had a big block, Mom had a smaller piece, the little kid had a piece of kindling, and they're marching up the trail. The other side of that is there were quite a few piles of wood along the trail when people lost their enthusiasm. That's okay. It's just a human element. So anyway, yeah, where were we? I'm off meandering again.
I've got a question. For the layperson, could you just describe the purpose of the fire lookout and then kind of walk us through a typical 9 to 5?
Okay, the basic reason for our existence in life is to spot fires. And this is, as I'm sure you know, this is called the alidade, which is basically a big compass. It has the map inlaid here of the whole area. And this spins around the azimuth here. You can read off as you sight it like a rifle. If I get a smoke over here somewhere, for purposes of argument, let's say it's 75 degrees. It's never that simple, but 75 degrees. This is the fireboard, and unfortunately, our working side is the other side. But I can probably show you from this side. Each one of these circles represents a lookout. Now there are, if you want to slip around here and see this side, I can do a better job of explaining on this side. This is Hell's Half Acre, the center of the universe, where we are right now. So what did I say? That was degrees. I'm trying to remember here already. So the fire off here is 75 degrees. If I'm in a real hurry, I will call Bear Cone, which is just over here, which you can see on a clear day, and ask him, can you see a smoke? I've got 75 degrees azimuth. If he can pick it up, we can get that fire located down to about, 2 or 3 acres within a minute. And this has worked for over 100 years. There are no batteries involved, simple string and plastic.
That was great. I have one small request. Could you just one more time kind of get up from the chair and then just talk about how to use the alidade again? That was fantastic.
I'll put this back up here, get this out of the way so I don't go smashing into it. Okay, I'm gonna get a drink. You probably don't need to see all these condiments on the table.
Oh, it's fine. It's fine. Adds character.
Containers, how gauche, I know. Okay.
Yeah, so show us how the alidade works.
Okay, the center of the universe is the alidade. This is chapter and verse. This is the altar of the operation. This is actually a big compass. The azimuth is printed in the ring around the edge, and you sight through here just like a rifle sight. If you've got something of interest like a smoke, you will sight through the viewfinder here and then read the azimuth from here. This particular one was B 10, 11, 12, 13 and a half, not quite a half. I would guess that would be 12 degrees in like 75 minutes. Then you can call another lookout and get a cross reference, or you can start figuring out, when you're here for a while, you get pretty good at estimating distances. This bar between the front and hind sights are marked in marks that coincide with the squares, the grid of the map, so you can figure out approximately on there. You can get pretty good at bringing it into about 40 acres, just eyeballing it. You can bring in a lot closer, you can get a counter azimuth, triangulate. This is the Osborne Firefinder. Osborne was a firefighter at one time. This is patented in 1918, and it's pretty universal. They aren't making them anymore. They're fairly valuable. This goes down in the winter. This is treated like precious jewelry.
That was a beautiful
Thanks.
piece.
Yeah.
And just a second while I set this back up. But if you could just kind of walk us through your 9:30 to 5 or your 9 to 5.
Okay. We're on a pretty usual summer fire schedule, 8 to 8. 8 in the morning to 2000 in the evening. 8 o'clock. Well, I'm a farmer at heart. I grew up milking cows, so I'm up at daylight. It's daylight, so I'm up rumbling around. 8 o'clock, I'll take my first weather. I'll go down and figure out the temperature, the wind speed, direction, relative humidity, all that. Get that recorded. There's kind of a slack time between 8 and 10, and which I'll catch up in chores around the lookout, eat breakfast, whatever. At 10 o'clock is the lookout check-in and the daily weather report. Very important, very critical. Actually, I make jokes about, they're making sure that I'm, sober and awake. Well, sometimes things happen up here, medical things, or, it's good to know your people are alive and, ambulatory. Then it's pretty much, watching, except on a day like this. If I was a regular lookout in the smoky weather, I'd be doing probably serious maintenance, catching up and painting, getting rid of stuff, just, the regular stuff. And after that, it's, you put yourself in a schedule. I've got about a 15-minute schedule, and I'm doing something, but every 15 minutes I'll walk around the catwalk, take everything in. If there have been previous lightning strikes, there are fires that just stay underground for up to 2 weeks. They're called sleepers. You record your lightning strikes, and you keep track of that area for 2 weeks. So there are different levels of awareness here that you have to maintain.
Yeah, that was great. Thank you.
Yeah, I think that's.
I have one. Could you just describe, since you've been up here on Hell's Half, the fire season so far?
My 2 days here. It's been pretty quiet. There was a storm ripped through here probably a month ago. There were actually 2 fires that were staffed in the West Fork. They are, they've been put out. They've been declared out, and so it's pretty quiet. When I had to check in on early Sunday morning, and the fire crews there working on their equipment, had their hoses scrubbed, and were out drying them, and it was just a day at the shop. So right now it's pretty quiet right here, whereas Idaho is burning up. I understand from the radio that the National Guard has been called out. It's getting pretty serious. Not to say that it's just over there, it's not our problem. Well, it is our problem. I mean, look at the smoke. And, we're just last year was pretty quiet. We had a lot of lightning and very little ignition. And the ignition, most of the fires were under an acre or two and put out in a day. So, this is, climate change. Got those words out. Things are changing. Okay, just somebody going out. Where were we?
Yeah, have you noticed any change in fire management policy and philosophy since you've started as a lookout?
It's very subtle. It used to be, any fires that came up in the wilderness area were just let go. It's a wilderness, untrammeled by man and all that. And there are problems if, come, this is about, in fact, it was part of the whole motivation to change the process in St. Mary, but it was about 11, 12 years ago. There was a big fire in the wilderness just on the boundary up Kootenai Creek. In the late September, it blew up and came down, and the good citizens who were imperiled in Stevensville were ready to murder the fire staff at Stevensville, so that's when they started manning St. Mary again. They also seemed, it used to be a little more, relaxed about, replying to fires. Now they're on it, I think a bean counter somewhere suddenly occurred to him that, it's cheaper the faster we get these fires out. So yeah, it's just this time of year, everybody's ready to go.
Do you think that any of this policy has changed with the influx of people moving to this area?
I think we're catching up with it. I think people are just as stunned as I am. And the first question is this going to be sustained? I mean, once the epidemic has subsided, it's probably take another year. People come to their senses, and I don't know. It's hard to say. It goes back to overpopulation. There are just too many people. We've got to make allowances for a lot more people. I better not get on the overpopulation soapbox.
Could you just talk a little bit about the community of the Fire Lookout community?
Oh boy, yeah. Well, there are some people who are doing this their whole lives, and it's just I really love talking to Rhett. It's her life, and I got whining and stimbling about the smoke and a lot of other things. But then she immediately went into how lucky we are to be here, and we are. I mean, this is a blessing that a few of us can be up here and do this and get paid for it. So there's a guy named There's a guy lives in Derby. His name is Reen Eustace, and have you seen the Fire Lookouts of the Pacific Northwest, the book? There's actually an excerpt of his in there when he started in Boulder. The Boulder, it's no longer in existence, but the Boulder Creek Lookout, Boulder Mountain Lookout. He's still here. He's technically retired, but they can't get rid of him. He's going to be an aerial observer this summer on the Air Patrol. He'd be a great one to tell you. In fact, I think he's working on his own book. But, it gets to be part of you, and the people have been here a long time. Reen is kind of like our senior representative, our spiritual guide. If you need to know something's going on or need help with anything, Reen's the first guy you call. Your boss, the fire management officer. So, anyway, as usual, I have to reiterate, I am in a kind of a separate situation. I'm a volunteer, and volunteers are kind of like herding cats. But so I have my own strong opinions about it. But mostly it's from talking to a lot of people who've been here a long time. Obviously, I like being here. I kind of got started late in the program. I'm a horseshoer by trade, and encountered some physical problems with that. So I just there's a lot of things in my life fell in through the back door.
Okay.
What was the question?
I've got one more, and I think Michael has one.
Two more, and then we'll be. Do you want to go? And then.
Yeah. This is a little bit odd, but could you maybe talk about your personal relationship to wildfire? I mean, how you feel about wildfire?
Oh boy, that keeps evolving too. It kind of stuck in my head and stuck with me for a long time. I am obviously not a Native American, and I've got issues with people trying to, rip off their everything, starting with their land, which we're sitting on, and, spirituality and everything. But I was coming back from somewhere, and I happened to, share a seat in the bus with a young lad. This is like 30 or 40 years ago. He was a Native, and he was going to start his job as a firefighter. So he was starting with both sides, fire was in his culture from the word go, and now that he's earning a living, fighting fires. the big thing here is that, you know, the 1910 fire was when the Forest Service was getting started. It was the big freak out, the big scare. We've got to stop these fires. Okay, did a good job. 100 years later, we've got a huge fuel buildup. Fire was part of Western ecology. It was, you know, these trees have been burnt every 15 to 20 years. The tough ones, the old ones. The survivors have, you know, evolved to where they can survive. So now we've got more and more people coming all the time, building their dream homes in the mountains. At least most people now are gotten away from cedar shake roofs. Let's start the fire here. I think most insurance companies have stopped, you know, insuring buildings with cedar shake roofs. They should stop insuring buildings inside the fire zone. In the sermon there, you know, I don't know. It's a necessary part of the ecology, and we're mucking it up. You know, you have these big fires like California, like Paradise a couple of years ago, just demolishes everything. You know, you just lost everything. And there's going to be more of it. You know, it's just, we're aiming that way. Yes, we're starting on prevention and, you know, limited fires in the early fall, late fall, early spring. We got too much catch up to do. And we can kind of feel a little, you know, superior and apart from the things up here. But we're no different than California. We're living in the woods. We've got a massive fuel load. It just hasn't happened yet. So I don't want to see suffering. I don't want to see people injured and hurt and suffering. But what are you going to do? There we are. The conundrum. I don't know if I answered your question. I lose track of the question about halfway through. So, okay.
That was perfect. Yeah.
Good.
You're good?
Yeah, that was a good spot.
So, well,
Yeah, thanks so much for your
yeah, good visiting with you lads, and I can ring up Red if you want, or just, you know, put her on your list.
She's on the list.
You probably got a plan today, and I'm already telling you what to do.
Brett and Mark will end up on it eventually. I mean, this isn't a
Have you
project.
contacted them though?
I've
He's
shot.
been trying to, so
We
it
tried-
might be good to.
Do you want to do that?
I mean, just if he's willing to say, you know, just maybe even just let Rhett know that we'd like to talk to her at some point. You know,
Yeah.
that we're
Okay.
trying to get in touch with her for this project.
I think her
Okay.
voicemail box was full. I shot both of them Facebook messages, but I think it went to like the folder it goes to when you're not friends.
Yeah, it's like we're in the canyon and we're trying to radio to dispatch, but we got a radio to you,
We gotta get to
and
Pat.
then you got a radio to
Yeah.
Do you know, are they going to be out there